Hey GUAM, it's Bear Killer 777-Mitch. This is going to be a reply video to your video entitled I Can't Be an Atheist. Basically, I'm just going to be stating some things I've been going to talk a little about myself before I, found Jesus, and some things I've also been receiving. I actually heard a lecture today on the radio, or lecture, I'm not sure you can call it a lecture. A sermon, I guess. It's basically talking about the fallacies in the Bible and what all of them seem to be. And atheists tend to point out those fallacies. For example, there would be two passages in the Bible that talks about King David's army. There was, say in this passage, there would be 1,200 horses. Meanwhile, in this passage, there would be 1130 horses. So how does 70 horses affect my salvation? It doesn't. I mean, am I going to hell because I didn't know there was a difference in horses in the two passages? No, because my salvation doesn't rest on the fact that there was 70 horse difference in between this passage here and this passage here. And if anybody doesn't believe me, you can just go to Google and go to Bible fallacies, or contradictions, I should say, contradictions, and you can just look over this list, and then there's several contradictions. One of them is definitely going to be the numbers, and actually most of them are just numbers. For example, I'll just click on one of the first one I see. Okay, the number of beasts in the ark. We have Genesis 7:2 and Genesis 7:8. Genesis 7:2 says, "Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two the male and his female." And verse 8 goes on to say, or verse 8 and verse 9, "Of clean beasts and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls, of everything that creepeth unto the earth." Verse 9, "There went into Noah ark the male and female, as God has commanded Noah." And of course verse 2 before that says, "Take by thee by sevens instead of by two." So that's just one of the hundreds of contradictions in the Bible. But as you can, I'm just looking at this list as I'm talking. I'm seeing that most of these contradictions that the atheists point out tend to be in numbers. For example, one passage would say 6 days, another day would say 7 days. One passage would say there were 13 of this, there were 15 of that, or there were so many men in his army, and this passage and the other passage would have a different number listed for that army. But when it comes down to the fact of your salvation resting upon Jesus Christ, there's no difference in the contradictions of that. If you ask any atheist or person you know to point out one contradiction, they're most likely going to point out one of the passages I just listed, and it's most likely has to deal with numbers. And my question is this to those who believe that contradictions should not be in the Bible, such as numbers. Why should my salvation rest upon the fact that there are 70 horses difference between this passage here and this passage? I just don't understand that concept, because my salvation should rest on Jesus Christ, not the fact that there were 1,100 men rather than 1,200 as opposed to these two passages. Because you have to remember, when the Bible was written, it was inspired by God, written by man, and then translated into English. And then our differences between then and now, with a difference of 2,000 years, you combine that all together and you're going to have some problems with the numbers. But the main message still deals with the fact that the cornerstone of our faith is Jesus Christ. So the differences and contradictions don't have anything to do with my salvation at all, period. They just have to do with these little random facts here and here and here and here and here and here and here. and I can automatically go through several contradictions one by one all day and night, and I could still point out the fact that, well, this author was talking at a different time here and this time here. But we can just set aside those differences and say, well, we have to realize that it was written by man, inspired by God. So in spite of the fact that they got the number wrong, it's another person coming out and telling us more about God, what he is, and what his thoughts and opinions on this topic in this book, whatever the book is, the Old or New Testament. So that's my first thing, is that's what most of the contradictions are. And I had a person a while back contact me through email. He's talked about Leviticus. He says so that I hold the Bible true, and I take Leviticus into fact too. And he pointed out several Bible verses. A large majority of them were in Leviticus, and one of them was dealing with don't eat shellfish. And if you eat shellfish, he expected me to go lobby against Red Lobster and go, no more Red Lobsters, otherwise you'll go to hell. No more, don't kill me, don't do this, don't do that. Well, all I gotta say is that Leviticus was old law and the New Testament is new law. So there are a couple of good words of wisdom in Leviticus. Most of what is in Leviticus is just practices and rituals to atone for sins, or things that we're not supposed to do, and there's a multiple variety of topics that talks about in Leviticus that are words to the wise, I guess you could call it. Words to the wise. And most of this Leviticus things I've been dealing with are just old law. They don't have anything to apply to today. I mean, we have animals and etc., but today's society was different than it was now than it was 2,000 years ago in the town of Jerusalem, with the old markets, and they'd sell in the streets. I mean, if you look on the street, you're not going to see someone selling their lambs for $200 a piece. So they'd have to have, back then in that day of time, some sort of law to keep their sheep clean, So that's the main, probably why Leviticus was put in there, so we could see a perspective of how they had to live, so that we could see that we need to enjoy the fact that we have the new law rather than the old law. So that's why Leviticus was put in there. It wasn't put in there to tell us, oh, you're doing this wrong, you should be doing this to your sheep. Women should have to kill a dove, because one of the contradictions the person pointed out was that women, during their time of the month, had to kill some animals whenever they couldn't wander on the streets at all, period. They had to go kill this dove and make themselves clean, and they could only do so much. Couldn't get out of bed, These little contradictions, or these little things that they talk about, are little procedures, and the reasons why they were pointed out in the book of Leviticus is because they are procedures to keep you safe and clean and healthy. So, if during a woman's time in the month, you don't want to be wandering around, going to the fairground and doing all sorts of things and going on roller coasters. I mean, I guess you could. I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I can't sit there and say that, I guess. I don't know. Okay, anyway, I've rambled on enough about things in the Bible, blah, blah, blah. So, happy Tuesday. God bless. Peace out.